Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Plaw, at Andrew Plaw Tech, with a very special guest today. Guest, who are you?
Hi, I am Jake Hildreth. Hello, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Do you have any tools that we're going to be talking about today? Maybe some new versions coming to them?
No.
Oh, well.
Oh, wait, yes.
Oh,
Locksmith.
I mean, we could have made it happen either way, but.
Perhaps it's a tool you've heard of. Yeah. Locksmith. Started work on Locksmith 2 this year. So that's, we'll dig into what those mean in a little bit, I'm sure.
Sweet. Yeah. It's been a while. I think we had you on the podcast 10 months ago. Always a fantastic chat. I think we introduced some PKI, ADCS stuff, talked about Locksmith for the first time. But, you know, as time goes on, I've been seeing you and your Locksmith boys getting active, getting out there.
It's
right?
true.
I've seen you on the socials. I've seen you doing like webinars and all kinds of stuff, man. So we're going to kind of cover what you've been up to a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds good. I like it. Let's do that.
So before we get into PowerShell, what's been going on? You got any new hobbies? I know it's like really cold here. We're both in hoodies. We actually had our hoods on. We had our hoods off. You know, we kind of figuring out the temperature. But what's been up in your neck of the woods?
So yeah, almost breaking my foot was pretty cool. Like enjoyed that. That was pretty fun. I don't think that's a hobby really. More of a pastime.
It's a hobble.
Yes, it is a hobble. That's
I'm
true.
sorry. That's very Juddian of me.
That was very Judd. Yes. Yeah. I am not. So right before you and I started talking, we were doing a PowerShell Wednesday at PDQ Discord. Come on out. It's good time.
Every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern? Oh, that's PowerShell Wednesday. Yeah, you did do one. It was a fantastic demo.
Yeah.
You crushed it out of the park.
Judd joined. Judd says, can I drop some dad jokes? And I, not knowing what I was getting into, said, absolutely drop some dad jokes. And I think 3 or 4 times I had to stop presenting just because I was laughing so hard. So, yeah.
His GPM is what we call groans per minute was pretty high. Shout out to Judd for coming by, though. It's always great to see Judd.
Yeah.
But I saw him at first, and I was like, oh, Judd, he loves nerdy security stuff. He's probably one of the few people here who actually likes interacting with certificates and that whole thing. And no, he was there to, you know, make us groan, make us just laugh a little bit. But
yeah,
it's funny. It's cringy. I like it. I hate it. You know, that's where I come from. And if I see it enough, then I start to actually do it myself. As we saw earlier, right?
Wait a second. You have children and you are not just immediately going to dad joke land?
The thing is, my wife took over the dad jokes first.
Oh.
So I was like rebelling, and then she's influenced me as Judd has influenced me. And now, you know, I try and ignore it. And sometimes I'll like say it in work meetings and people will laugh and I feel bad. I'm like, don't laugh at that, please. I'm sorry that I did that. But yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. That's what it's like in my brain. It's very chaotic.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I could see that. Having talked to you now for a year, I could imagine what's going on in there. It could be a little chaotic.
But it's fun. It's fun. Now, your PowerShell journey has been pretty fun this year. Have there been any interesting topics that have been a little bit challenging for you as you've sort of gone through things?
So, classes. We in my day job, working for Trimark right now, you know, we are developing some new tooling, and classes get thrown around a lot because it's all being built in C#, right? And so they're doing things the right way, and you know, building custom stuff. And Sam Erdy, former guest of the pod, came on last year sometime, I believe. And he is like falling in love with classes now. And man, my brain just cannot wrap around them yet. But in that exploration, enums, baby, got them, figured them out, understand how to use enums and write them. So that's been cool. Played a little bit with our old friend ChatGPT, or sorry, the Copilot AI. For GitHub. Makes my life easier when it comes to writing help. What else we've been doing?
I mean,
don't
it sounds
know.
like you've been
Just
busy.
learning new stuff. Just it's there's always something new, right? There's always something new. Learning how to do proper pipelining. Did that last year as well. Had not been, the begin, process, end blocks. Like I knew they existed. I couldn't tell you how to use them. I knew they existed,
Right.
so that was cool. Actually, PowerPUG, one of my other tools that I released last year for helping people use the protected users group, and we can dig into that if you want a little bit.
Yeah.
That I built specifically to be just pipeline aware, right? Like, so I get into some of these functions that are calling other functions, and instead of having to do all this weird stuff, it's literally pipeline, and boom, getting the right stuff. So, yeah, it's been a lot of learning, and a lot of learning how to be more PowerShelly. One thing that I brought up earlier in the demo was like, when I created Locksmith, is like mode. Like, that's not a PowerShelly thing, right? Some things do that, but like calling a mode for something, no, you break out the parameters. What does the mode do? You can have, validate sets to pull all the information about those. And like, yeah, every day it's learning something new. So it's been fantastic. Yeah.
But I think that's awesome to see, because you've created a project here with the knowledge that you had at the time, and it's effective. It works. And as time goes on, this is a GitHub repository. You can continue to make improvements and all that kind of thing. But as you do more, you learn more, you hear from other people. Like I think you mentioned Sam or Spencer gave you some feedback on things you could do better. And all of a sudden, you start implementing these things, you learn, but you didn't have to know everything before you could create the project. I think a lot of people get hung up on I don't know everything about creating a module. I don't know everything about the best practices here, there, everywhere. So I need to wait. The truth is, get started where you can with what you have. And there's always the future. If it's a tool you continue to get use out of, it's worth investing in further, especially in a case like yours where other people are getting a lot of value out of it as well. I mean, that's awesome. And for me, it's very cool to see, because oftentimes this growth happens in private. People only do the public module after they've, been doing it privately for like a year and all their coworkers. But as we know, that's not the best approach to things. You got to build in public and just put it out there. You don't need to come off as an absolute PowerShell expert in anything, right? You don't need to always be the top. You can be where you are. And so kudos to you for demonstrating that and modeling that for us. And
I will say it's been wild, like doing it in public, like you said, because there are some times where like I put something out and then 6 months later I go back and look at it and I was like, why was I doing it that way? Why are there 900 steps when I could do this in 3? Like, what is it? And then you learn these new, like data structures and things that can like help you out. And like, there's just it's so deep and so awesome. And the thing that I started working on last weekend is wrapping. So certutil, right? certutil.exe is used for a lot of ADCS related stuff. You can find status of certificates and your certification authorities and what templates have been recently used and these sorts of things, right? It sucks to use in PowerShell because it outputs just this block of text, right? Started learning Crescendo over the weekend, baby. So,
wow, let's go.
Yeah,
Holy
Stevie
crap.
Coaster, baby, is helping me out. So we're working together a little bit, wrapping that. So I was able to I have about 5 or 6 different functions in certutil that I want to get data out of. And I got all of them to be commandlets and spit out exactly the data that I want. Cool. I've got one of them to be parsed properly so I get an actual object back instead of this ugly block of text. And it only has the little bit of data that I want. It's beautiful. And I've been putting off Crescendo for forever. And then it's on the PowerShell Discord Sunday morning, and I'm like, or Saturday morning, I'm like, Crescendo, and I see Stevie's name just pop up 100 times, and I'm like, all right, Stevie, tell me about this Crescendo thing, and he's gives me a bunch of links and kind of work through it all, and I new tool in the tool belt, man, new tool, love it.
So it's a cool one. That is awesome, and Stevie's very passionate about that. I think that was one of his passion projects for a little bit. He likes to dive deep into things. And so he knows
I could tell that.
About a thing or two.
Tell that. Yeah, it's nice too that we're both Ohioans, and so we're cool like that.
I hear a lot of great things about Ohio.
No, you do not. Do not lie to me.
No. I'm trying to be the first one to ever say that to you, not say, yeah.
Oh man,
but that's okay. It's about the people who live there, like you and Steve.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet.
Yes, so sweet. That's me. So PowerPUG, you mentioned.
Yeah, I did.
I want to know more. I like free wins. This is a module you've written, PowerPUG.
Free wins. So since I've started working at Trimark, right, we do these assessments. We look at your Active Directory. We say, what's going on in there, right? And 95% or more, more of environments are not using the protected users group. Now, what is that, you say? Protected users group. I also asked that same question about 2017, 2018, when I upgraded my entire forest at my job at the time to server 2012 R2 to functional levels, right? And suddenly I saw this new group and it says protected users. And I'm like, what? Go dig in a little bit more. There's this group, exists in every domain in a forest, and just looks like a normal group. And the description is really nondescript. It's like, serves to protect the integrity of something or other. What does that mean, right? So what it does is if you have a user that is added to this group, that user can no longer use weak forms of authentication in your environment. So I'm not sure what depth level of AD your listening your audience is here, but like NTLM bad. We'll just say that. You can't use NTLM anymore. Kerberos, good, but weaker forms of encryption for Kerberos are bad and breakable. If you've heard the term Kerberos before, that is typically done with a service account that has Kerberos encryption of type RC4, and that is at this point crackable in like an hour. It's incredibly weak and broken, right? So by adding a user to this group, just adding them to a group like a normal group, those weak forms of authentication are gone. There are also some other protections, like your credentials can't be cached in any location. You can't your account can't be delegated, which is basically impersonation. Can't be done. So protected users group is cool. It really is like a great way to protect your most sensitive users, like your AD admins, your whatever admins, right?
Yeah.
It prevents their credentials being left on machines after they've interacted with that machine. However, every single time that we've investigated, hey, why are you not putting your users into this group? Well, we tried and then we couldn't RDP into something. Well, we tried and then we couldn't log into vSphere. Well, we tried and then this happened, right? X. And I thought, these are all solvable issues. These are not difficult things to be doing if you are doing a true separation of your admin accounts from your regular user accounts, right? It should be fairly simple to just go ahead and add these users in. So what PowerPUG does, it checks. Do you have the protected users group in your environment? If not, upgrade your forest. Are all of your AD admins in the protected users group? If not, let's see why. Let's see, can you make some quick wins and add these users today? And so it checks. Has there been recent weak authentication? Has there been delegation? Has there been any of these things, right? Is it a computer? Computers can't be in the protected users group. They shouldn't be AD admins either, but that's a different fight. We'll fight about that differently. Same thing with service accounts, right? They should not be in the protected users group, but they also shouldn't be AD admins to begin with. So yeah, PowerPUG did that. It is much like Locksmith and Blue Tuxedo. You kind of run a single thing and it spits out, walks you right through. Like, this is what happened. You can, this is fully supported here. This is how you would add this user to this group, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a lot. I'm sorry for digging into that.
No, that is amazing. I like red team tools. I like getting on Kali and playing around with stuff. And so much of that type of thing is about knowing the right tool to do whatever you're trying to do. You don't actually need to know all the zeros and ones about everything. You need to know about the underlying tool you can do to like do the Jack the Ripper thing or whatever it's called, John the Ripper, that kind of thing. And I think that what we have here, what you're highlighting us, is sort of like the blue team version of that. Like, what is the tool that you can use for getting started with understanding or taking the steps towards security? Whether that's with Locksmith or with PowerPUG, like, can we get a grasp on this whole thing? This is kind of a wide domain. This is a focus tool to help you start making that change, because making these changes is not just flicking a switch sometimes, right? We have complex environments, we have approval processes, and anything that can make that easier and approachable, I think, is a huge win for the sysadmins, but I think for security at large, right? Because we have a limited amount of time. It's hard to do these things. Anything that can make it easier on us is going to be a huge win. So
absolutely. And you know, you heard my manifesto in the demo earlier today. Like, I want it to be easy. So I don't want to have to install anything additional other than the absolute bare minimum. I don't want it to be slow. I want it to be fast. I want it to just give me the answer quickly, right? And sometimes that means narrowing the scope of the tool to really be really specific, because you can get some tools out there like these. You know, you're running basically a full assessment on your AD using a Pink Castle or a Purple Knight or a Forest Druid or Bloodhound or something like that, right? And that's great, but it's often too much. It is just kind of blasting you in the face with all these red indicators, and you're like, oh no, there's so much to do. You know what? Xbox sounds cool, man. Like, I'm just gonna go do that instead. So, but yeah, if you
that is what happens, though. You're very correct.
It really is, right? Analysis paralysis is real, and so yeah, taking that and just kind of narrowing and just getting right down to the heart of the matter, and just like, here's the thing that's wrong, here's the way to get over it. The end. I also like to really include. Over the last year, I've kind of had this like goal to improve the educational aspects of my tooling. So you saw in Locksmith earlier, like, why is this a problem? What exactly is wrong? Additional links to go look at other things so you can learn more, etc. Doing the same thing in PowerPUG, did the same thing in Blue Tuxedo. Like, it's just, I want to share the knowledge and get it out there. So, yeah.
I mean, and love to see it. I think that's a sort of progression many of us have sort of experienced to be real, which is, okay, you want your message to land, you want your project to be used. How can we facilitate that? Well, oftentimes it's through good docs and stuff. So it's awesome. Yeah. That's why I'm saying I love watching your journey, because it's like it's condensed in a very short period of time, though. You know, you're growing kind of fast on us. You're like a dog.
That's right. That's right. Last year I was a puppy. Now I'm a middle-aged or middle-aged.
You've gone out the fence, man. You're free now. But I want to talk about the protected users group. So basically, in my mind, this is sort of what I'm seeing. Let me know if I'm right. Okay. Security, defense, it's always kind of like a cat and mouse game, right? Forever and ever. And stuff that was really great in the past maybe isn't so great now. And the protected user groups sort of seeks to limit the exposure from those older technologies that are now sort of either defunct or very exploitable, with using off-the-shelf tooling that adversaries may use a lot of off-the-shelf tooling. And it's sort of, it's not a good look. You use PowerPUG and then you sort of get rid of all that.
Sort of. Yeah. Sort of. And it's funny because, like, you mentioned the adversaries doing off-the-shelf tools and stuff. And, like, I've got a contact that just started working at a very large MSSP, whatever, something, has visibility into thousands of giant environments, right? And he says he is seeing these off-the-shelf tools, completely unmodified, just still landing on boxes, blowing stuff up. Boom, you're restoring your forest. He said it's shocking. It really is just shocking on how it works. And so, and I wanted to say, I did a demo or a webcast with BHIS last month.
I saw it.
Thanks. Worked through Locksmith, and I did live attacks in the demo. If I can do live attacks, somebody who's actually skilled at attacking would have no problem, right? And these are things that are just available out there. So, yeah, kind of mind blowing that all of it still works. But at least we got some people watching out for us here and there. So, and I just try to do a little bit, right? I just try to do a little bit to make things a little bit better. That's all.
And that's all we should all seek to do in whatever way. Maybe we're at the spot where that little bit is just trying to start using the protected users group, right? Maybe that's our short small win. But we can take it from there and do. It's really wild what you can accomplish with your career when you sort of really put yourself out there and do some things. And it's been fun watching your rise, man. I'm excited to see sort of what you're cooking up for the next year or two.
Me too. But yeah, I mean, I was going to say, oh wait, you were about to segue. I stole your segue.
You go. We got segues for seg days. Okay. So you can go ahead.
Beautiful. Locksmith 2, you mentioned it a little bit earlier.
That's what I was going to mention. We're aligned. Yes. Locksmith V2. What's this?
So, Locksmith 1, as demoed earlier, it started as a script and it grew into this thing, right? It's clear that it never really had an architecture behind it, right? It just organically has grown. So when it comes to adding a new detection, right? ESC15 discovered and released in November of last year. It took me touching, I think I counted, it was like 12 different files in order to add that detection, right? And adding new features, adding new detections, adding new stuff to it is just difficult. And we've been talking about for the longest time in the Locksmith team, like, how can we make this easier to use for people? And I know when I was first messing around with computers, the command line was scary. So screw it. Let's make a GUI. Let's turn this into have a GUI, have better reporting in formats that are actually helpful to people to identify, which are our most dangerous configurations, which are our most dangerous users in the environment when it comes to ADCS, right? And so those things, and then also do play up the automation aspect. As mentioned in the demo earlier, like Locksmith currently doesn't output objects to the pipeline. And to me, that's a huge miss. So, that is number one on the features list. Will output objects to the pipeline. So, and then along with that, doing a series of commandlets that are kind of more focused. I want to look for this specific issue. I want to look for this specific issue. I want to look for this specific issue, etc. And again, always aiming to make it automatable and work in other tool sets. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Because I think looking at your demo, I think you mentioned there was some write host, and now you're sort of moving away from that. So it's awesome to see you implement these things, and we get to watch it, man.
No write host, actually. I guess there is the logo and stuff like that, but no format.
What was
table.
the YN?
Yeah.
The yes no questions?
Oh yeah, I guess that is write host.
I think
you got me. You caught me.
It's all right. There's a lot of lines. Okay, listen. I read about 50 of them. You've read about 3,000 of them. Okay, maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't show that. The release that I showed you as the old one was about 1,000 lines, and this one, the most recent one, is just over 4,000 lines. So it is wild how much it's grown, and it's a lot of that is comment based help, just adding actual help because it's important.
It is. It really is, especially if you're dealing with anyone who's ever used PowerShell before. Even if you haven't, look, people will try and get their questions answered by reading the code, or if you're accustomed to PowerShell, get help is like back of your hand.
Yeah, it's great. And now that so Sam added MKDocs and an MKDocs site for us now, and so we do have the Dash Online. Works great. I know you love the Dash Online, so
you can't go wrong with it. Gosh, I mean, that's like that's awesome. As soon as you can do that, it really feels like it's a proper kind of project. I mean, even before that, you can totally feel that way. But for me, it's like, that's the World Wide Web. I just got there from PowerShell, and I can look at my own thing and click around. It's more than just this little code on my computer.
Yeah, man,
feels real.
Yeah, it's real. Yeah, exactly, it's real. So, But yeah, Locksmith 2, probably aiming for. I was talking to the what do you call it? Organizers of Hackers Teaching Hackers, which is normally held like early to mid November, and they typically do like some 4-hour workshops and stuff. And I would love to do a kind of a attacking and defending Active Directory certificate services and use Locksmith 2 in that class. So that's sort of my goal. Giving myself 3 months to sort of do more research and do some architecting before I ever write a line of code. Because if you have a plan, you don't end up with with this sprawling whatever it is that I've got right now.
It sounds like you learned from experience, and that's what we're all about. All right, let's get it right the second time.
A little bit, baby. Yeah. Now, Locksmith 3. Oh man, that's probably just gonna. It's just gonna be like
just fix all the computers for you. It's gonna whole world is secure.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So we're talking about your sort of journey as a PowerSheller, right? You're prior to that, maybe you were more of a security AD type. But now you're sort of really with it, right? Like you're deep into the PowerShell these days. In my opinion, I see what you're doing. I see the improvements you're making. Like there's not many levels beyond where you are. What has changed about your workflows since getting to this proficiency? Has anything changed about your workflows, or is everything kind of the same? Or
I will tell you, I now have modified my profile, and I didn't do that in the past. Like I've got a bunch of stuff that new function, right? And just boom, give it a verb, give it a noun, give it a destination path. It builds that function. I've developed, I developed a module for myself called auto repo that like I can quickly spin up a GitHub repo in the PS publish module format, and it solves that issue for me, gets it going in seconds, right?
PS publish module, that's the Evotech
Evotech
module.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I tried playing with Contesta last year some, and
Chuck Testa. Sorry, what'd you say? I'm sorry, Jake. You got me feeling too jovial, man.
There's no such thing, brother. There's no such thing. Catesta, Catesta.
Yeah. Oh, I'm familiar with what it is.
Yeah. Tried that, and boy, I still need to learn how to write tests well, because that's my issue, right? That is one of my goals for Locksmith 2 is actually like get good with Pester, like
Yeah, you might be the best tester in the Midwestern if you learn a little bit more Pester. I don't know. Could be you, man.
Oh boy. Okay. I thought you said it was your wife that does this.
It's been a long day, man. I've had about 4 hours of meetings before this. We did a webinar with a lot of people, so I'm excited to just be talking some tech.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's been awesome. I want to give a shout out to something. It's more of a community resource, but it kind of ties along with what you're going through here. And I think a lot of people may benefit from hearing about the PowerShell Best Practices and Style Guide. It is a GitHub repository with a bunch of markdown articles covering around some of the generally accepted best practices for how to write PowerShell. And it covers, I think, a lot of the things that you're going through and sort of making changes to the new version of Locksmith. But it can save you a little bit of frustration if you ever get if this is tickling your curiosity, check it out. And then in the future, when you go to write something, you can have already sort of learned some of the mistakes you may make. But if not, just write it. You'll be all right. You don't need to get it perfect the first time.
Absolutely.
Just do whatever is going to get you to the next step.
Something else I learned recently.
Okay, let's hear it.
The formatter? How did I not know about the formatter?
You mean like pressing F8 in VS Code?
Like Control Shift F or whatever.
Yeah, that Command F, whatever.
Yeah. I was like, how? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a big time saver.
Oh wait. So does the best practices guide mention OTBS, or what's the brace style they're going for?
I don't remember, honestly. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I remember I ended up on OTBS was the one that I selected for my preference. I think there might be a little bit of wiggle room on that, but gosh, you got me curious.
Yeah, we can look at that afterwards and then be sad that we're not doing it right.
Yeah. I mean,
it's I did not realize that there was such a religious war amongst various brace styles until I started working at Trimark. Because I'd always I understood braces. I knew what I had to do, but like, oh boy, yeah, some people are very adamant about what they like and don't like there. So it's pretty wild.
That is for sure. But I think VS Code kind of lets you change it to your preference, right? Like,
I noticed that.
Yeah, so I think it's less of a big deal these days.
Yeah.
I'm all right. People want to be super opinionated. I can be a little flexible in some ways.
For sure. Especially if you're working with especially if you're working with, multiple languages and whatnot that each have their own thing. Like, I've got a couple C# developers that I work with that, like, they bring over C# kind of naming conventions and stuff, and it like rubs me the wrong way, but also it works and it's better written code than I can do, so it's fine.
I want to give you a pro tip.
Okay.
So earlier I was watching your VS Code and I noticed that you had the little toolbar thing, where you can like click on the files and the extensions, right? That kind of sidebar thing. So I think it's called the activity bar, actually. Sure. So I noticed yours was on the left. Yep. All right, that's the default position. Okay, cool. A default Danny. But we can break outside of that, because if we pin it to the right-hand side, right? That file explorer that we all use if we have a module or whatever with a bunch of files, we can pop it out. And then if we press Control B, we can minimize it. Well, if it's on the right-hand side of your code, it doesn't indent all the code that you might be reading. Very, very subtle life hack, but a life hack nonetheless. Gosh, now that I say it all, it really is a very subtle life hack. There's very little to be gained for that, but there is something to be gained moving your activity bar to the right.
No, I love that. That's great, because that is the sort of thing that I hadn't even realized that I do. Usually I just have the activity bar open, right? Like, I always have my file explorer open and whatnot. But yeah, there are those times, especially when I'm demoing, where I'm popping it out, I'm popping it back. And so, yeah, good to know.
And shout out to Zen mode. Do you ever use Zen mode? Press F1, you can type in Zen mode. And
yeah,
I mean, it helps me occasionally. If you want to get lost in the shell, go ahead and check out Zen mode.
I have a kind of a setup at work that, like, I stare at a specific spot. I have it always in the same spot, and like everything else does kind of just melt away on its own. So maybe I'm just getting into the zone on my own.
Maybe. Well, you have better focus than I do. Jake, it has been a pleasure talking with you today. And before we end up moving on with our days, I want to hear where we can find you on the World Wide Web. We've loved what you had to say. We're digging the projects. Where can we connect with you online?
So you can just go to jakehildreth.com. If you're watching this on video, it's actually up on the screen. JAKEHILDRETH.com, or ... horse. That is DOT.HORSE, which is a real thing. That is just my link tree. It's got a link to all my stuff. Locksmith, Blue Tuxedo, PowerPUG, my certifications, my GitHub, my Mastodon, blah, blah, blah. Like, everything is there. So if you want to hook up, hit me up. I love to chat with everybody all the time. So, yeah.
Social Butterfly.
Come hang out.
Awesome. Well, I will have links to everything that we've talked about today in the chat. You can click it. And if you're going to check out his repositories, you might as well click the little star icon. Why not? Can't hurt.
I'm not going to be mad.
A little legal, but you put some time into this. So, a little bit, at least we can do, right? A couple clicks.
I will say, Locksmith hit 1,000 stars on my birthday. Dude. I was like, whoa!
Dude, happy 21st, birthday, man. Let's go.
That's right.
What a way to celebrate. That is exciting, man.
Yes, I'm clearly 21 years old. You are correct.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us today. And thank you, everybody out there, for listening. If you are walking, driving, whatever it is, do it safely. And I want to tell you what, while you're doing it, while you're enjoying PowerShell, maybe tell a coworker, share it with a friend. That person you maybe went to a couple classes and maybe took that certification thing with. Let them know. There's a PowerShell podcast out there. Maybe like, comment, subscribe, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or your podcast platform of choice. We are worldwide. This is a weekly episode every single Monday. And you know what? Every single Wednesday, There's PowerShell Wednesday. We got you covered. It's more of a face-to-face lunchtime, 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to talk some PowerShell. We're going to learn some new things. And we're going to, there's a little bit of fun banter in the chat. I've been digging the vibes. What do you think, Jake?
I have really enjoyed the vibes. Like, it was just very, like not overwhelming. I've been in some webcasts where like the chat is just like this, right? And it's like, that's too much. This was perfect. Small, intimate, and just good people. Good people,
room to
good
grow
questions.
as well.
Yeah, man.
Room to grow, always welcoming new people. Well, thank you, Jake. Thank you, everybody out there. Shout out to PowerShell for being amazing. Shout out to you for being one of our awesome listeners. Appreciate everyone out there for helping make PowerShell so great. Jake, any last words for the people out there?
Stay warm, I guess.
Stay warm. And you know what? Take control of your PKI. Let's get things a little bit more secure. One step at a time. It's a big, never-ending battle, but we can take control of things one step at a time, right, Jake?
100%.
And we're not doing it alone.
Do better today than yesterday. That's all you got to do, right?
Yep. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.